So this is the Holly Grove Greenline. The Greenline is an answer to the neighborhood's flooding problems. What happens in communities like Holly Grove, as we showed you with the original pumping station, and by the way, this Greenline is where the pipes are that lead to that pumping station that we showed you a few sections back. What happens is they pump all this water out of the neighborhood and pump it out to the lake. But the problem is you can only pump so much. What happens when the water coming down, the rain coming down, is beyond the capacity of the pumps to drain it out? Well, then you've got flooding in the neighborhood. And so we began to ask the question, what can we do with abandoned property that would solve that problem? And that's the Greenline here. Now what you see down in this little swale is water comes off the street and gets pumped into that little retention area right there. Then it gets sucked up by native plants. Now we did a number of these in people's yards so that we have these little retention ponds on a smaller scale taking place in people's backyards throughout the community. And that's an attempt to solve flooding in the community. Now, solving flooding. Does that seem like a social worky kind of thing to do? Well, of course it is. If you've got an injustice in the community like neighborhood flooding, where people live on streets where water's being swept back into their house by passing cars, you've got to do something about it. And so we did. We made a cute little green line with fruit trees growing along it and green space for people to walk through. And we also created this little drainage program, the drainage project here, that we also did in people's backyards. That's social work, and that's showing the love of Christ to people that are in desperate need. And that's what we want you to understand as you kind of move through these sections. So let's talk for a moment about the Christian social worker's worldview. What is it about the way we think that's different from how others think? For example, theologians or psychologists. Well, we think about the world through the lens of structural poverty, of structural inequity, of marginalization. We think about the world through the context of its social problems. That's what we're doing in Holly Grove, and that's what we want you to do elsewhere in the nation and around the world. So as you think about the Christian social worker's worldview, you'll be reading canon sections on domestic abuse, drugs and addiction, euthanasia and physician-assisted suicide, and education. You'll also be reading Christianity and Social Work, chapters 11 and 12. You'll watch the video, Sung Chan Ra, Racialization and Nationalization of the Image of God, which is important because we fail to understand how racialized and how Americanized our version of God actually is. You'll read the biblically grounded foundation for social work. You'll complete exercise 7. You'll participate in the discussion board for Unit 7, and you'll take the Quizlet. And I'll see you at the beginning of Unit 8.